Hello and welcome back. I am Conan Librarian with Conan's EDC, Easy Dad Carry, and today I want to go over some Swiss Army knives and their features to help you figure out what Swiss Army knife is best for you. Let's take a look. Okay, so a few givens on all of these knives. They all have a knife blade on them. That's pretty easy. I'm not necessarily going to be recommending the knife in particular, unless you really like the specific tool set on a particular one of these, but more the idea of each tool and what its usefulness is. So we're going to start down here at the end. This is the classic or the SD, and this is probably the most universally recognized Swiss Army knife. Scissors, tiny blade, nail file, nail cleaner, and the tweezers and toothpick. I will say, as far as this one goes, this is the right knife for anyone. Anyone should have an SD. Everyone should have an SD. You, your parents, your kids, age, and coordination, depending, have one of these. They're great. The SD is a classic and one of the best-selling knives. I believe I read somewhere this is one of the best-selling knives on the planet, and there's a reason for that. Getting into the larger knives. Now, these are all the 91 millimeter. I think Victorinox considers them medium size, but I mean, that's a full handful. I don't know how you would consider this a medium, but compared to some others. So this is a review of the 91 millimeter knives. The smaller ones have a lot of different features, but we're just going to be going over the bigger ones. This is the Spartan. This essentially has been unchanged for many years, and as a matter of fact, this was my great uncle's, given to him in the mid to late 80s, I believe. Again, like I said, on all of these, they have a knife. The other common thing you're going to find on most of these larger ones is, and I'm just going to pull this out here so you can see, and I'll even leave this kind of up top here, because this is a pretty standard array you're going to see on most of the larger knives, is this can opener, bottle opener, larger blade, smaller blade. When we start getting into other knives, or rather these lines themselves, it's these back tools that really start making a big difference. So, right here, you have a corkscrew. Now, corkscrews are not as commonly used a lot of times these days, and it makes sense unless you're really just opening a lot of bottles or wine bottles. Corkscrews not as common and maybe not as useful. However, this actually has a lot of good uses, say, while you're hiking or camping. One, it does hold, this is a mini flathead screwdriver, great for glasses or other tiny electronics, say. You can also get tools that go in this, like mini tinder bits that screw in here, or tiny tinder rods that also screw in here. The other thing you can do with this as well on a corkscrew, you can actually go into softer material, say softer wood if you're trying to make a hole. You can also use this, here we go, say if you need to help untie a knot, if you can hook this into what you're working with, it can actually hook and help you untie really bad knots, which is pretty nice if stuff is getting tangled up. So again, I'm just going to leave this open. The other tool you find on a lot of them, actually, is the awl. Now this one, here we go. I want to do this without hurting myself. Okay, hold on. Might not want to go with all these tools out. So let me close some of these and then I'll open it. There we go. So the awl, this is actually used for sewing, whether it's leather or canvas or other heavy material. The awl is made for puncturing super heavy material, and that eyelet there is actually for pulling thread. So in an emergency situation, camping, hiking, or working with heavier material, that's what that awl is for. Again, that may not actually be best for, say, an urban carry, but something to consider too is depending on how you're holding this, it can also be used defensively. Obviously, you're not going to leave any of these open. However, it is very sharp and very pointy. Something to consider. Obviously, a knife blade itself as well is a defensive tool, but pretty easy to carry this. And if you need to defend yourself, say, just in a bad situation. So again, I'm going to go ahead and leave this open to kind of show off the standard display or standard array that a lot of tools have. Moving up from here, this is the hiker. Now, something you're going to notice on a couple of these are not standard scales. I don't know that either of these came with this, and they definitely didn't make any of them that I know of in two-tone, especially the hiker. I swapped to the plus scales on this, and I've got a couple videos about that, but the plus scale allows adding a pen, which is really nice. This is actually my yard work knife. I just throw this in my pocket when I'm going to mow the yard or be out trimming or handling just out on the property or around the house. The reason I like this, again, it's got your standards, but as small as this is, and you can see it has what's called one more layer. Swiss Army knives have layers, and each layer, each time you add a layer, is really when you start adding tools. Aside from the knife, the can opener, those other ones, what I really like about this and why I use it when I'm out doing yard work is this really nice saw. The Swiss Army knife saw on these bigger ones, you're looking at just about 3 inches. And I will say, these things are made to process wood. They work surprisingly well. You're not going to want to have to cut down a tree with them or go through, a 12-inch log. But these things really handle well, really aggressive without biting too bad. The saws on these are just awesome. If you're at all someone who hikes or camps, the saw on a Swiss Army knife is absolutely, honestly, the best saw I've used on any multi-tool. The Leathermans, the SOGs, all of those other ones out there do a good job, but nothing really feels the same as well, honestly, just because the grip on a Swiss Army knife is so much more comfortable for sawing than a lot of other stuff. Now, the other tools you start getting into, it's where you see a lot of differences, are on the backside. Yes, I've got another awl here, but your Phillips. Now, I've said in a lot of other videos, I do not like using the integrated Phillips on a tool to actually do work, because my problem becomes, if you strip this, this tool is useless. There's nothing else to really do with this unless, I don't know, you sharpen this and then you just got something to punch with. However, the reason I like this around the house is because I literally can just, oh, this needs tightened, and I can take care of it, whether it's a door handle or whatever it is. Phillips is your most common screw that you're going to find around the house. If it's a flathead, that's why you have your cap lifter. Bottle opener is a flathead too. I like the screwdriver for more urban settings when it comes to EDC. Whereas if I'm going to be hiking or camping, the corkscrew to me makes a little more sense. It just, again, really depends on what you're doing. Now, obviously, you can, with the Phillips, use your smaller driver heads on your different tools, but a dedicated Phillips, to me, makes a little more sense and is a little more useful as far as an urban setting. Again, I recommend, honestly, any 91mm pocket knife that you get, Swiss Army knife, consider getting one of these kits for the plus scales. It's super easy. It takes 5 minutes at most to swap the scale. There's a lot of colors you can get, and to be able to carry around a pen. The reason I really wanted a pen while I was doing yard work is because oftentimes that means I'm in the garage, I'm getting sidetracked, I'm doing projects. A pen's just really nice, especially too. Most of the time I have to run and go get gas because I always forget I don't have any gas for the mower. So yeah, and the toothpick is nice too, obviously just because, well, that's a throwaway comment and a waste of time. Anyways, moving on. These two items, this is the Super Tinker and this is the Tinker Deluxe. They're essentially the same tool. So I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time going through differences. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to say I love this knife. It looks good. It feels good. It's the Desert Warrior Blade HQ, and it will always be a classic love of mine. And when I carry my donut loadout, I I want to grab this every time, but I just think to myself, well, I have other donut stuff because really lately this has been my regular EDC. This is the Deluxe Tinker. So with this, you have again your standard items here: your blades, large and small, can opener, cap lifter. I also have the all on here. This is where you start getting into really big differences of what you want. Your tinker and a lot of other tools this size move into large scissors. And I will say, I will take a pair of these scissors over anything else out there. They're just fantastic. They're not the largest, but they cut and just handle great. I've never had a failure on them. Now, they're not as heavy duty as a lot of other ones, but honestly, they don't need to be. If I'm really processing something that these can't handle, I have other tools here. Now, the other tools, speaking of, that we get into on this are the pliers. Now, there's the other couple very popular models out here. Obviously, I don't have every model, but the other tool, here we go. I'm going to show this again in an urban setting. I like having that screwdriver. If you would prefer, though, you can get, instead of, say, this um, set of pliers, you can go with something like the Fieldmaster, which is a very popular one. And the Fieldmaster actually swaps out these pliers for, there we go, for the saw. But you would still have your screwdriver. There are a lot of really, there's a huge number of combinations, and there's pretty much a model out there for everyone. As far as if you want to keep it thinner, you're probably not, I don't know of any model where you're going to find both of these in this thinner slim line. But for me personally, I also tend to swap them out depending on what I'm doing. This on the back has the Phillips, which I really like on the Tinker. It also has another really great tool is this little hook. Now this can take the place of a knot detangler. I have used these for actually hauling what it's meant to be as a parcel hook. So hooking string or line here, say you're fishing and you need some extra tension on your line. Whatever you're going to do with that, I've actually used it for tent stakes too. I really like having that little hook. It may seem odd, but it actually has come in handy a lot more often than I've thought it would. So yeah, I really like having that hook. It's kind of a random one-off tool, and if you very specifically want the hook, it actually comes on most things now. If you don't want the hook, again, most of them come with that now. This again has the plus scales. I swapped yellow on here just because I wanted obnoxious. Another thing to consider if we're talking about tools, I swapped out the toothpick itself for one of these little ferro fire rods. I actually showed this off in one of the last videos, but these are really great. Oh, come on now. There we go. There we go. You can see, just gives you a little backup spark. I know this isn't my hiking or camping one, but seeing as how this is the knife I carry the most, I really wanted to make use of it. So again, this also has your all. Almost every one of these is going to have an all, which really isn't a bad thing. It's one of those things, now that I carry Swiss Army knives more than I tend to carry other multi-tools, I find uses for these tools that I didn't have before, or find myself using them in places where before I just either went without or had to use something really not as intuitive or useful. Last up here, this is the Handyman. Now the Handyman, you can see, is very chunky compared. It's got another layer here but it's got a lot of really good tools. It still has the pliers, which I really like. This is actually my hiking and camping setup. I leave this at home, and this guy comes with me because it also has what I really enjoy, besides a good set of pliers, which, by the way, this will fit all the way up around I believe, 10 mil. I used this to recently bust some old license plate bolts off when I just picked up an older truck and I had to swap the tags out. So this was really nice to have. I actually used the pliers on this, but it's the same pliers that you're going to get on any of these 91 mils. They're just awesome pliers. Now, they're not necessarily the same as, say, the SOGs or the Leathermans, but for being so small, there's a lot of power in these. The other tool, let me get it pulled up again, a saw. If I'm going to be hiking or camping, I absolutely want to have a saw with me, whether I'm processing for firewood or just need to get through something. A saw is great. Another really great tool on this, now this is the Handyman, so has a file, which I really like. If you watch a couple of my other videos, I actually even use this to get into the secret tool slot on the scales on these, so I could add a toothpick back in. But the file is, honestly, these are really nice. I mean, aggressive without being, I'll say, aggressive without leaving too bad of a bite, and really comfortable to use. Now, these do not cover the full spectrum of all the tools on all of them. When you start getting to something like the Champ or the Cyber tool, those really are not only bigger, but almost specialized. What I wanted to show off were some of the more basic loadouts and the more basic tools. When you start getting into something like the tools that have little magnifying glasses, the Champs, the Cyber tools, those, once you move past a tool set like this, in any sort of combination, I think you're looking at something very specifically either larger because you want to have every tool possible, or again, like the Cyber tool, something very specific because you want to carry that very specific tool set. I hope this hasn't been too rambly. Now, personally, I love all of these. Again, this is my hiking, camping multi-tool. This is my EDC. This goes with me all the time, every time I leave the house, unless I'm hiking, camping. This is my yard work. This is just, honestly, this goes in the sprinkle collection just because it's a dessert warrior. This is my date night, and this actually goes with me a lot too. This is just a good keychain carry. But there's a sack out there for anyone and everyone. There is a Swiss Army knife that has tools that you're looking for. There's a Swiss Army knife that has a combination, or you could be like me, who is obsessed with collecting anyways, where Swiss Army knife is absolutely a way to feed that addiction of collecting multi-tools, justifying needing more multi-tools, and honestly feeling good about it, because any Swiss Army knife that you pick up, I feel, is going to serve you well. It will have function, it will have purpose, it'll look good, and nobody's going to look at you for having a Swiss Army knife as someone who's going over the top, because honestly, Swiss Army knives are made for everyone, and I think everyone should have one. I'll drop links to all of these. I will say right now, at least at time of recording, Amazon is running sales on a bunch of these for a pretty good discount right now, actually. So make sure, hop on that. I might even put this video out before, because I added the toothpick to this one. I might put out this video just so I can make sure people know that a lot of these are on sale, these models and more. So yeah, thank you for spending your time with me, and as always, stay safe, be prepared, and have a great day.